Imagine being fired, not for being late, not for making a mistake, but for showing kindness. That's exactly what happened to Alicia, a young waitress who gave a disabled veteran a free cup of coffee and a little respect. Her manager exploded in rage and threw her out on the spot. But just when it seemed like she had lost everything, the cafe doors swung open and a squad of Marines marched in. What happened next shocked every single person in that room, and the entire internet soon after. The lunch rush at Sunnyside Cafe was always overwhelming. Clattering dishes, the hiss of the espresso machine, impatient voices calling for refills, and the constant shuffle of feet moving across the tiled floor. It was chaos to some, but for Alicia Johnson, it was just another day. At only 24 years old, Alicia had already earned a reputation in the cafe as the waitress with a warm smile and a heart too big for her own good. No matter how rude the customer, she treated everyone with the same patience and kindness. To her, it wasn't just a job. It was her way of making people feel seen and cared for, even if only for a short moment. That afternoon, as Alicia balanced a tray of steaming plates, something caught her eye near the entrance. An elderly man in a wheelchair was struggling to push himself through the cafe's heavy glass doors. His arms trembled as he tried to maneuver, but the doorway seemed like a mountain against his fragile strength. Alicia's heart dropped. Without hesitation, she set the tray aside and rushed toward him. "Don't worry, sir. I've got you," she said softly, her voice carrying the kind of warmth that could melt stone. She swung the door open wide and gently guided him inside, ensuring the way was clear. The man wore an old, worn Marine Corps cap, its faded fabric telling a story of decades gone by. The pride in his eyes, however, still burned brightly. His face was weathered, his hands shaky, but his presence carried dignity, the unmistakable aura of someone who had sacrificed deeply. Customers looked on. Some smiled approvingly, touched by the gesture, while others frowned impatiently, as if Alicia was wasting time. But she didn't care. To her, this man deserved nothing less than full respect. She quickly rearranged a few chairs near a table so his wheelchair could fit comfortably. Then, instead of rushing back to her other tasks, Alicia brought him a steaming cup of coffee on the house. The old man blinked in surprise. "You didn't have to," but Alicia only smiled. "Of course I did. My name's Alicia. What's yours?" He straightened proudly and introduced himself. "Sergeant Daniel Miller, U.S. Marine Corps. Retired." Alicia leaned closer, lowering her voice to a whisper. "You don't worry about the bill today, Sergeant. You've already paid more than enough for all of us." Sergeant Miller's eyes welled up with tears. For the first time in a long time, he felt truly seen. Unfortunately, not everyone appreciated Alicia's kindness. From behind the counter, the cafe's manager, Mr. Peterson, had been watching the entire scene unfold. His lips pressed into a thin, angry line, and his fingers drummed irritably against the cash register. Peterson was a man whose reputation was built on rules, schedules, and profit margins, not compassion. To him, every extra napkin was a cost, every favor was money wasted. He stormed across the cafe floor, his polished shoes clicking sharply against the tiles, until he stood towering over Alicia and Sergeant Miller. His voice, low and venomous, sliced through the chatter of the cafe. "Did you just give away free coffee?" he hissed, his eyes narrowing. "Do you think we're running a charity here?" The room fell silent. Even the sound of clinking forks and plates stopped. All eyes turned toward the confrontation. Alicia, though caught off guard, didn't flinch. She straightened her back, her hands still resting gently on Sergeant Miller's table. Her voice was calm but firm. "Sir, he's a veteran. He's given everything for this country. It's just one cup of coffee." But Peterson's face twisted with anger. "I don't care who he is. Rules are rules, Alicia. You don't give away anything for free in my cafe. And you certainly don't rearrange my furniture for one customer." The words hung in the air like a slap. Customers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A mother at a corner table pulled her child closer, whispering, "This isn't right." Another man shook his head in disbelief. Sergeant Miller lowered his head, his wrinkled hands clutching the edge of the table as if to keep from rolling away. The shame written across his face was heartbreaking. He had survived wars, but in this moment, he looked small, as if kindness toward him was too costly for the world to bear. Alicia saw his pain and reached out, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "Don't you worry, Sergeant," she said softly, more for him than anyone else. That simple gesture was the breaking point for Peterson. His voice exploded across the cafe. "You're done here, Alicia. Get out. You're fired." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman sitting by the window muttered, "You can't be serious," while another man stood halfway, glaring at Peterson. But the manager's face was stone cold. He meant every word. In that moment, the cafe wasn't just quiet. It felt like the heart had been ripped out of it. Tears welled up in Alicia's eyes, but she refused to let Peterson, or anyone else, see her crumble. She had always promised herself that no matter how cruel the world became, she would never let it rob her of dignity. With steady hands, she untied her apron, folded it neatly, and placed it on the counter as if she were the one in charge, not him. Her voice was quiet but powerful, cutting through the tension in the air. "If kindness is against your rules," she whispered, her eyes fixed on Peterson, "then I don't want to work here anyway." The cafe fell silent. Some customers clapped under their breath, while others simply stared, shocked at the courage in her words. Alicia turned back to Sergeant Miller, who sat with sorrow etched across his face. His weathered hands trembled as he looked up at her. "I'm so sorry you lost your job because of me," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. His tone carried guilt, as though his very presence had cost her everything. But Alicia leaned down, taking his hand gently in hers. Her smile was soft, though her eyes shimmered with tears. "Don't apologize, Sergeant. You deserve respect. I'd do it all over again without a second thought." For a brief moment, Sergeant Miller's eyes glistened with gratitude. He had been through battles, seen comrades fall, and endured hardships most people couldn't imagine. Yet here, in this small cafe, one young woman's compassion reminded him of the humanity he had fought to protect. Alicia then straightened, squared her shoulders, and walked toward the door. Each step felt heavier than the last. On the outside, she held her head high like a warrior refusing to bow. But inside, her heart cracked with every stride. She needed this job. The paycheck paid her rent, kept the lights on, and helped her mother back home. But how could she stay in a place that punished compassion and rewarded cruelty? As the glass door swung shut behind her, the cafe seemed emptier without her presence. What Alicia didn't know, what Peterson certainly couldn't have imagined, was that Sergeant Miller wasn't just any veteran. He was beloved and respected far beyond this cafe's walls. In the Marine community, his name carried weight, honor, and loyalty. And word of what had just happened would not stay inside those four walls for long. It was about to spread like wildfire, and when it did, justice would come storming through those doors. Minutes after Alicia stepped out of the cafe, the heavy glass door swung open again. But this time, it wasn't just another customer walking in. The room fell into stunned silence as a squad of Marines in full uniform marched inside, their boots striking the floor in unison. The sight alone carried weight. Their presence radiated authority, honor, and an energy that made the cafe feel suddenly smaller. At their front stood a tall, broad-shouldered commanding officer, his chest lined with ribbons and medals that told a story of service far greater than anyone in that room could imagine. His face was stone, his eyes sharp and unyielding as he scanned the cafe. His voice boomed across the room, echoing off the walls with a force that made even the bravest men shrink back. "Which one of you thought it was okay to fire a woman for helping a United States Marine?" Every fork, every spoon, every whisper froze. Customers turned wide-eyed toward Peterson, who stood rigidly behind the counter. Phones were raised in the air as diners began recording, eager to capture the scene unfolding before them. Peterson's face turned pale, but pride and stubbornness pushed him to speak. His voice cracked slightly as he tried to bluff. I don't care who you are." She broke the rules. "This is my business, and I run it how I see fit." The commanding officer's boots echoed loudly as he took deliberate steps forward, closing the distance between them. He towered over Peterson, his presence alone enough to suffocate. His tone grew even sharper. Your business just disrespected every man and woman who has worn this uniform. That waitress showed more honor in 5 minutes than you have in your entire career. The cafe erupted in murmurs of agreement. A man at the back shouted, "That's right," and a woman near the window clapped. The applause spread until the room was filled with it. Someone yelled, "Bring her back." Another customer's voice rang out, "Shame on you." Peterson's shoulders slumped as he stammered, I can give her the job back. Tell her she can come back tomorrow. Please, I'll fix this." But the Marines weren't there to negotiate. The officer turned his back on Peterson, addressing the cafe instead. His voice carried the weight of finality. From this day forward, no Marine, no veteran, and no decent American will ever set foot in this place again. The room roared with applause, sealing Peterson's fate. His cafe would never recover. The story spread like wildfire. Within hours of the confrontation, the videos recorded by cafe customers began flooding social media. Millions of people watched as a squad of Marines marched into Sunnyside Cafe, confronting Peterson with words that cut deeper than any weapon. That waitress showed more honor in 5 minutes than you have in your entire career. By the next morning, the cafe's name was plastered across news outlets and online headlines. Hashtags demanding justice trended worldwide. Review sites exploded with criticism, dropping the cafe's once decent rating to nearly zero overnight. Loyal customers vanished. The tables that once bustled with families and office workers now sat empty, collecting dust. Within a month, Sunnyside Cafe shut its doors for good, a business destroyed not by competition, but by its own cruelty. But while Peterson's world crumbled, Alicia's life took a turn she never expected. Her quiet act of kindness, helping a disabled veteran, offering him coffee, and defending his dignity, had reached hearts far beyond the cafe's walls. The Marines themselves reached out to her. Sergeant Miller, deeply moved by her compassion, made sure her name was spoken with honor in the veteran community. Word traveled quickly, and before long, Alicia received a call from a local family-owned restaurant, one run by veterans for veterans. The owner's voice was warm as he told her, "We need people like you on our team. Here, kindness isn't just allowed, it's the rule." On her very first day, Alicia walked into her new workplace with cautious excitement. The air felt different. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was a community. And waiting at the corner table, dressed in his Marine cap and with a proud smile, sat Sergeant Miller. Alicia's breath caught as she walked over, and he raised his cup of coffee toward her. His voice was steady, but his eyes shone with emotion. "You see, young lady," he said, "sometimes standing up for what's right costs you something, but also brings blessings you never expected." Her heart swelled. She had lost her job, yes, but she had gained something far more valuable: respect, love, and a family who valued her for who she was. The cafe that fired her became a forgotten name, but Alicia's story lived on, shared, retold, and remembered. And in every version, one truth echoed loud and clear: kindness always wins in the end. And that's how Alicia's simple act of kindness turned into a story that inspired millions. She may have lost her job, but she gained something far greater: respect, family, and the reminder that kindness is never wasted. The cafe that fired her? Forgotten. But Alicia's courage lives on as proof that doing the right thing, even when it costs you, always leads to something better. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more powerful stories, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness always wins in the end.